Hey everybody, Zachary Jeans. Let's keep walking through the Bible. So today is 192, day 192, and we are in 1 Corinthians. We're in chapter 14. We're going basically chapter by chapter, although chapter 15 is going to break up into 2 episodes or 2 different days. But basically hit chapter a day. It's a lot, you know. Some passages are shorter, like 1 Corinthians 13, but there's so much there. So anyway, thank you so much for digging deep as we're able to go in our walk through the Bible, the New Testament, over the course of 1 year. You can share the whole read through if you go to the top of the playlist in YouTube and click on that. You can share the whole playlist, or you know, any individual episode, and eventually you can find your way to the playlist. But yeah, I really appreciate all your likes, all your love, all your encouragement. It means a lot. I'm glad you're being blessed by it. I kind of get a little bit of feedback here and there. I appreciate that. And I know I'm stepping on some toes, and it's not out of a malicious intent. I'm just doing my best to teach what I see here. Okay, so that could be my own failings, or it could just be that it's the Word of God and it doesn't budge. It doesn't budge for our sensibilities or our desires. It just comes strong. It comes hard. So anyway, we are in chapter 14, and again out here, this is our night blooming jasmine, and smells amazing even during the day. But yeah, Marge, even though she's fading a little bit here, still putting out quite a bit. So apologies if I'm constantly doing this and rubbing my face and whatnot. We're going to talk about prophecy. We're going to talk about tongues, talk about order of worship and what's not in order of worship. And we're going to touch on some touchy situations in the church. This whole book, this letter to the Corinthians, does that. It's a real dividing line for a lot of congregations. And we've highlighted as to why, and we've also, I hope I've highlighted ways in which we can give, you know, whether you're on the conservative Bible side, you can give a little bit of rope to the people who have a little more lenient interpretation, believe in some stuff that you don't necessarily believe in, and vice versa. You can have a little more grace for your brothers and sisters in the Bible side if you're in a charismatic church, and see things from their point of view. So hopefully we're doing that. And there's a whole bunch of battles to fight in the world, and I know we feel impassioned and empowered to fight battles in the church, because we don't want people to be led astray. We want people to be led towards the Lord. Man, there's so many bigger evils in the world than arguments about tongues and spiritual gifts. I mean, there's real evil in the world. So, all right. Well, I need a drink of coffee, so pardon me. Man, it's good. So good. Why don't we open up with prayer? Lord, I love you. God, thank you. God, thank you for your word. God, thanks for speaking to me and teaching me. God, please make these things come alive in my life, that I'm reading about you, and God, help me walk in your love and teach in your love, Lord. God, we lay down our objections for a minute here and just help us hear you fresh and anew. God, you say, Spirit, that you blow wherever you wish, just like this wind. We hear the sound, but we don't know where it comes from or where it's going. And God, you can come and move however you please, Lord. And I pray that you would. You can do anything. Lord, it's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Yeah, God can do and does. And we can join him in that. So, all right. Chapter 14, verse 1. Pursue love, right? Because he just got done saying the whole love chapter. He says, pursue love. And what? Earnestly desire. Oh, what should we earnestly desire? The spiritual gifts. What? That's not what it's supposed to say. There are people that literally don't want that to say that. And I think if you're one of those people, you just need to let down your guard for a second. Just hear the word. Okay? Just hear. Pursue love. Right? And earnestly desire. Not casually. Not kind of, well, I don't know, God, you're sovereign. Whatever. Earnestly desire. Find a deep and consistent desire, longing for the spiritual gifts. Especially that you may, dun 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 dun, prophesy. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you know, maybe you can just tell by the way I'm talking that I believe that it's incredibly important that we hear this. No, I don't want people to be led astray by false prophets and false teachers. No, I don't think that you should hold them accountable like some Old Testament prophet, just like there's a whole host of other things in the Old Testament which there isn't a strict adherence to. Taking a pregnant woman to a priest at the temple and then performing a ceremony to decide whether or not the person has committed adultery. Got that one going for you? Oh, you don't do that. Oh, okay. Why? That's what the Bible said back in the day. But you want to hold a prophet to the same level of accountability as that particular activity of identifying whether there is some adultery going on. I'm just bringing up a random thing from Exodus. The point is teachers, Bible teachers, hold the prophetic gift and the apostolic, if you want to call it a gift or an office, or you want to hold those who perform miracles or speak in tongues, any of these gifts, and they hold them to be, again, things that were necessary for a season of time in the establishing of the Word of God, but they no longer have a place nor importance because the Word of God is established. And you're never going to get me to believe that that's what's going on here anymore. Like, there was a time when I really held that as a possibility, but I just don't see it. And I have heard everyone make every argument. I've argued those points to try and see if I could get there. And as powerful as God's word is for giving the gospel, it's not the summation of everything that God does here on earth. The idea that Jesus just healed people to establish his ministry and the authority of his ministry denies that he did any of it without love. he did it with love and compassion for people. He fed people because they didn't have anything to eat and they had followed him way out to the wilderness. And he knew that they would faint and stumble and maybe die on the way home. God acts in miraculous ways. God spoke prophetic things, not just for the ears of those who were there, but for the ears of those generations later. And God speaks through people words that gives them clarity and insight in conjunction with the truth of the Bible, right? So pursue love and earnestly, in addition to earnestly desire spiritual gifts, especially that you could prophesy, right? For one who speaks in a tongue speaks not to men, but to God. Wait a minute, I thought tongues were languages being spoken to people for the gospel's sake. That's how people would interpret that. The tongues, they're for languages. Remember the day of Pentecost? We read about it. Wait a minute. Tongues are to speak not to men, but to God? For no one understands them, but he utters mysteries in spirit, in the spirit. Tongues aren't just, an indistinguishable utterances and babblings and language. When somebody says that they're just praying, and having that experience, the only purpose of it is to, speak the gospel to people who don't, you don't know their language, but God gives you the gift of tongues to speak the gospel. And what is Paul saying here? That when people are speaking in tongues in this context, that they are speaking a language that God understands, that they may not understand, that the spirit that they're speaking in, God's spirit, who utters groans too deep for words, utters prayers on our behalf, groanings too deep for our own language. When we are speaking in tongues to the Lord, that's who we're talking to. And we're uttering, whether we understand it or not, mysteries of God. And what is the point and purpose of that? God has a purpose in that. And that's all you got to care about. Now, when Paul says that there's a give and take between these gifts, some people then go, okay, fine. Paul said it. But Paul says, this thing is more important than this thing. So that means that thing, the tongues, isn't important at all. In fact, it should just go away. Do you see? We do that so many times in our lives, where if we're evaluating, we're discerning, we're weighing and judging things. We go, well, this one thing weighs, is more importance, right, than this other thing that has importance. And then we go, well, I like that one thing that weighs more, that has more importance. Therefore, this other thing that weighs less, or is secondary or tertiary, some level of degree less importance. Now, because I have the one thing that I wanted, the most important thing, now that thing doesn't even exist, and it sucks, and it should die. It should just go away, right? We do that with so many things. It's like taking a poll on social media about, like, what's the best Indiana Jones, and then maybe 60-some% pick one of them, and then 10% say this, and 3% say that, and 1% say this, and whatever. And the point is then we go, oh, well, those things don't matter, they suck. Well, they matter to some people. Somebody voted, said that was their favorite movie of the series. So, listen. On the other hand, the one who prophesies speaks to the people for their upbuilding and encouragement and consolation. The one who speaks in a tongue builds up himself, but the one who prophesies builds up the church. Now I want you all to speak in tongues, but even more to prophesy. The one who prophesies is greater than the one who speaks in tongues, unless someone interprets, so that the church may be built up. And not everybody gets to interpret that. So this is where a greater than, instead of understanding this isn't an either or situation, Paul is saying and also. And also. And he would rather one over the other. Both are good. And if you are going to speak or pray in tongues, where you are uttering mysteries of God in a language that only you and God's Spirit are communicating in, it has a purpose. It actually does build you up, and that's not a bad thing. Some people would say, well, that puffs you up. That's a prideful thing. That's not what Paul's saying. It's just saying that there is something that benefits the body across the body, and that's the prophetic gift. What is the nature of the prophetic gift? It provides upbuilding and encouragement and consolation. Having a prophetic word. Now, some people would dilute or redefine this prophetic word to just teaching or speaking truth. Prophecy is speaking truth. But Agabus, who tied a belt, Paul's cord belt around his waist and his hands and his feet, prophesied and said that he, the one who wore this, is going to go down there to jail, right? Prophecy is spoken of everywhere else as speaking truths about somebody's life that has an impending series of events, or their life as it is playing out. So to all of a sudden take that word and take that concept and twist it around into some sort of like really poignant Bible study truth, I think that that's disingenuous. That's not what Paul is saying. But prophecy that speaks to somebody's life and to the broader body should build people up. It should encourage them. It should have it could have a consolation effect, giving insight into a very dark or challenging situation. And God has that power to give to his body, to give to people. He says you should earnestly desire it. So somebody says, well, you know, when you're born again, God had these gifts and, you know, you got what you got. Then why is he telling you to earnestly desire something? If you've got what you got, there's no need to desire anything more. And also, to that end, some sort of weird humility where you're like, well, God, you've given me what I have, and I will be happy with what I have. No, I don't desire anything more from you, Lord. And here's Paul telling you to earnestly desire all the spiritual gifts. Ostensibly to pray and to talk to God about that. God, please give me the gift of prophecy. Please give me the gift of tongues. God, please give me the ability to heal people. God, please give me the ability to teach and preach your word in truth. God. And then some people come in, well, that's an office and that's a gift. And Paul mixes. Paul mixes. The point is don't dodge the bullet here. It's coming straight for us of truth. Earnestly desire the gift of prophecy. And the gift of tongues is good. And it builds you up when you're praying in tongues. But that's not a bad thing. But also pray that if there's somebody there that would be given the gift of interpretation, so that you know what it's saying, so that there's some wisdom and truth that you're having, uttering these mysteries between you and the Father, you and the Lord, that the Spirit would then allow somebody to interpret that and be able to speak that. There's a lot going on here that is usually just bulldozed right through. And I believe, as I've pointed out already, many passages, little sentences in here, are just flipped on their head, stomped on by Bible teachers with other passages, and then moved right past. And I just don't know how you can read this, just plainly, in context of Corinthians, and not understand. It's okay and good, in fact, commanded from Paul's point of view. He's telling them, do this, that we should ask God to fill us with these spiritual gifts. Now, brothers and sisters, if I come to you speaking in tongues, how will I benefit you unless I bring some revelation or knowledge or prophecy or teaching? If even lifeless instruments, such as a flute or a harp, don't give distinct notes, how will anyone know what's being played? So, if the bugle gives an indistinct sound, who will get ready for battle? So with yourselves, if with your tongue you utter speech that's not intelligible, how will anyone know what is said? For you will be speaking into the air. There are doubtless many different languages in the world, and none is without meaning. But if I do not know the meaning of the language, I will be a foreigner to the speaker, and the speaker a foreigner to me. So with yourselves, since you are eager for manifestations of the Spirit, strive to excel in building up the church. So his point to them is like, look, speaking in tongues, and also, but if it's only that, and there's no interpretation, and that's the only gift that you are seeking, remember he said seek all the spiritual gifts, especially prophecy, because it builds up, it consoles, it gives revelation to people, right? But if you just speak in tongues and that's all you got going between you and the Lord and no one's there to interpret it, then it really doesn't do much except for you, and that's okay, right? And also, not either or. Therefore, one who speaks in a tongue should pray for the power to interpret. For if I pray in a tongue, my spirit prays, but my mind is unfruitful. What am I to do? I will pray with my spirit, but I will pray with my mind also. I will sing praise with my spirit, but I will sing with my mind also. Otherwise, if you give thanks with your spirit, how can anyone in the position of an outsider say, Amen, to your thanksgiving, when he doesn't know what you're saying? For you may be giving thanks well enough, but the other person is not being built up. I thank God that I speak in tongues more than all of you. Nevertheless, in church, I would rather speak 5 words with my mind in order to instruct others than 10,000 words in a tongue. So brothers and sisters, don't be children in your thinking. Be infants in evil, but in your thinking be mature. The law is written, by people of strange tongues and by the lips of foreigners will I speak to this people. Even then they will not listen to me, says the Lord. Thus, tongues are a sign not for believers, but for unbelievers. While prophecy is a sign not for unbelievers, but for believers. If therefore the whole church comes together and all speak in tongues, and outsiders or unbelievers enter, will they not say that you're out of your minds? But if all prophesy, and an unbeliever or outsider enters, he is convicted by all, is called to account by all. The secrets of his heart are disclosed, and so, falling on his face, he'll worship God and declare that God is really among you. A lot there. But he points out that in their gatherings, you just had a bunch of people that were praying in the Spirit in tongues, and no one was interpreting, and no one could understand. And the only people being built up in that moment were the individual person themselves. And that these gifts are given, and he's like, if you're going to ask for God to give you a gift and use this in a gathering service, you probably should, at bare minimum, pray that God gives somebody to interpret these tongues, because those mysteries are the thing that will help anybody. And if somebody walks in and nobody interprets, then it's just going to sound like craziness. But if somebody has this gift of prophecy, which Paul just said that you should earnestly desire, among all the gifts, but especially prophecy, that when those prophecies are spoken, that believers themselves are convicted, and that unbelievers coming in and seeing what God is doing and being able to understand with their mind, they are able to be convicted themselves, because God is able to use individual believers to speak into people's lives and to know something that was yet unknown. They're able to have insight, which is from God, into someone's life, and that a great conviction will come upon people. What then, brothers and sisters? When you come together, each one has a hymn, a lesson, a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation. Let all things be done for building up. If any speak in a tongue, let there be only 2 or at most 3, and each in turn. Let someone interpret. But if there is no one to interpret, let each of them keep silent in church and speak to himself and to God. Let 2 or 3 prophets speak, and let the others weigh what is said. If a revelation is made to one and to another sitting there, let the first be silent. For you can all prophesy. You can all prophesy one by one, so that all may learn and all be encouraged. And the spirits of prophets are subject to prophets. For God is not a God of confusion, but of peace. Do you hear how that's not condemning the use of tongues? And Paul is recognizing that this body, who has these gifts, especially in this body, a gift of tongues, sounds disorderly. And he's not like, hey, stop speaking in tongues. He's like, look, if you're coming together in a gathering, a service, and everybody brings something to offer, let it be done in a sense of order so that people can process and understand what's happening. And that you just don't have a service that's only tongues, or only prophecy, or only a hymns, or only, let it be a combination of things, and let it be a limited but representative amount, so that people which are there to be built up, that's the whole point of these gifts given to the body. It's not a selfish thing, it's to build people up. But look, if you want to speak in tongues, that's great. Do it, you, one-on-one with the Lord. But when you come together, it doesn't have to be everybody. It could be 2 or 3. I think that that is just great, pragmatic, amazing guidance for our church. And did you notice how Paul said, when it came to prophecy, that let prophets weigh what other prophets, they'll judge that stuff, and that the purpose of it is for conviction and building up and consolation and all that, and to let just a couple, 3 people do it and to weigh it out. Our body, God's body here on earth, that is a healthy way of operating. Now, I have seen glimpses of this in my life as a Christian, where a body's operating that way, just for brief periods and with smaller groups, and not really to the fullest degree that it could have. And I don't blame any church for struggling with this. How do you do this with a congregation of a few hundred people? Or the size of the group matters, and you know, you don't know everybody in that room, and you can't just hand over the keys to the pulpit to this teacher and that teacher, and if you don't know who they are, or that prophet and this prophet, or that person praying in tongues and that interpreter. And But if a body knows each other, and those with the gift of or the office of pastor are there, and they know the people that are there, this could be accomplished. Because they know the people there, and they know that they've been expressing those gifts, and that they know when they come together that there's not so many people that people would be led astray, right? It's a real challenge, but it could be done. For God is not a God of confusion, but peace, of peace. As in all the churches of the saints, the women should keep silent in churches, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be in submission, as the law also says. If there's anything they desire to learn, let them ask their husbands at home, for it's shameful for a woman to speak in church. Or was it from you that the word of God came? Or are you the only ones it has reached? If anyone thinks that he's a prophet or spiritual, he should acknowledge that the things I'm writing to you are a command of the Lord. If anyone does not recognize this, he is not recognized. So my brothers, earnestly desire prophecy, to prophesy, and do not forbid speaking in tongues, but all things should be done decently and in order. So there he just brought up a very challenging passage for us culturally. Women speaking in church, and they should go home and hear from their husband, and boy, that's really challenging, right? So I think this sits in the same context of the time and period and what was going on in the order of the church, because we also have places where women prophesied, right? Remember the 6 daughters of Philip? You have all kinds of people. Do you have Anna in the temple not prophesying and laying hands or speaking out in the temple over the baby Jesus? Do you have Priscilla and Aquila, Prisca? Do you have her not informing Apollos, one of the great teachers, if not little a apostles of the church, pulling him aside and instructing him? So I think that it's important to recognize that Paul is writing to the Corinthian church that was in a place of chaos, and there was disorder in the church, and in their particular culture and place, it probably wasn't helpful, and it probably came across hard, because he did caveat that whole, like, I'm speaking to you with authority about how you should get your service right, how you should get this church gathering right. And for whatever reason, he felt like that he had to tell that there were women in the church and they were disrupting the authority structure there in that. Now, there are those who just read it straightforward, and they say, no, actually, we're just so far away from that culture that Paul was actually saying is not just a first century Roman culture. It's actually the way that God wants it, and any of our problems with it today are the fact that we're just in a state of rebellion. We're living incongruent with how God wanted it to be, and we can't see the beauty of a church that's set up that way. And ostensibly, then, as the church lives out its life in public, a society that begins to operate that way. But again, I don't read this passage as only being to being to everyone everywhere, because he often refers to everybody as brothers and sisters. Where it says brothers, that word almost always is brothers and sisters, and that language is meant to instruct everyone, men and women. It could be that didn't want the cultural disorder of those that are married, men and women, and the wife usurping the authority of the family in public, it could be a reference to that. And so it wasn't so much that, you know, women can't speak at all, but in these places where you're setting up an order of worship and an order of sharing, and you have some people who are married and a wife and a husband are there, and that there's some big argument about what someone is saying and not saying, that could be disruptive to the body. But we, in our current context, read this passage and immediately jump to the most shocking and bold reading of the passage, which is, hey, you're a woman, you can't talk. You need to go home and learn, get your learning from your husband, right? It's so dumb. I don't think that that's ultimately what it's saying, but it's more like, look, we need peace in these services, and they are chaos. And look, we don't want to have any fights between wives and husbands. And remember this whole concept that I'm telling you about, the order that God has set up in this covering. And so can you save it for when you get home, so we don't have arguments, spousal arguments in public? Because that's not going to help the transmission. It's not loving. Can we give that up during this service so that you can go home and then figure this out? So anyway, tough passage. And yeah, it really is. So until tomorrow, day 193, keep walking, okay? God bless you. Bye-bye.